Welcome to Marketplace Tech Bytes, our weekly review of some of the biggest stories making headlines across the industry. I'm Lily Jamali. This week on the show, Florida bans social media use for minors under the age of 14. We look at how to supercharge your electric vehicle savings and what to expect at Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference in June. Helping me to dig into all of that this week is Joanna Stern. She is senior personal tech columnist at the Wall Street Journal. Hey, Joanna.
Hi.
Hey, great to have you back. And we're going to start, as we always do, with our Bite of the Week. This is a number that sums up the week in tech. What do you have for us?
I'm going to say it sums up my week in tech. I'm not sure it sums up everybody's, but I'm going to go with 83% of EV owners charge at home. And this is important to me because I charge my EV at home, and my column this week was all about home charging. And I could give you, I probably have like 20, 30 numbers in this piece because I did a lot of math and I realized how much money I had been saving by charging or paying for electricity and not paying for gas.
It is a lot of money, and we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about you testing your non-Tesla EV on a Tesla charging station at long last. We always love covering your EV adventures on the show, Joanna. So that'll be coming up in a little bit. I have a Bite of the Week as well. Mine is 93%. This is according to a Pew Research survey, U.S. teens between the ages of 13 and 17. Of that group, 93% of them said they use YouTube. And the social media use obviously does not stop there. Somewhere in the order of about 60% of those kids also are using TikTok. They're using Snapchat and Instagram as well. So that actually brings us to our first story of the week. That is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signing these new social media restrictions into law on Monday. Joanna, this is about as strict of this kind of law as we've seen from any state. First reactions.
Good luck to the parents. I mean, look, it's not for the lack of trying that. Look, we can argue with this actually, but it's not for the lack of trying that tech companies have tried to get these kids off of their social media platforms, or at least tried to say, hey, we set an age of 13. If you're younger than that, you shouldn't be on here. But what happens is that parents end up signing up their kids. They make an account for them. And this is where we have a lot of kids that are younger than 13, frankly, on social media. And this is minors who are 14 and 15 this is targeting. So this is a step up.
Yeah, this is important. These platforms, as you just alluded to, whether you're talking about Facebook or Snapchat, they already have policies that prohibit kids under 13 from joining. Apparently, kids are using false birth dates. They're figuring out how to get around it, maybe with the help of parents. So do you think a law like this can actually change things?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Good luck to the parents because they're going to be part of the enforcement here. I mean, also, this is going to be aimed also at the platforms for trying to enforce this as well. So, look, we've got a nationwide problem. You just mentioned it in your stat. So this is one state trying to take it on, but we do have a nationwide problem with this. So where does the federal government, what are they doing here? And then also, what are these platforms going to be forced to do for all its users, not just the teens that live in Florida?
Right. Well, this law requires anonymous age verification. So this would be done by a third party. And your colleagues have been writing about this at the Wall Street Journal, saying, there's a big question about how that actually happens. It is not entirely clear at this point. And your colleague spoke with David Wells over at Brookings, who told them, and I wanted to get your reaction to this quote before we move on. Social media is like smoking. If you hook people early, you've got them for a long period of time.
Yep.
I'm curious what you think, because I am just now starting to break my own social media habits after 15 years of using it. And I didn't even have it when I was a teenager.
And this is the interesting thing. And I think, an outright ban on social media for certain ages is one route to go. But as we're talking about, this could be really hard to enforce. And some of the other proposed legislation over the years has actually talked about those addictive parts of the apps and ways to limit those. And so you've had elected officials fighting for some of that. I mean, we've made no progress on this in the last 2 years, but where one of the ideas, and I forget specifically which bill it was or which piece of legislation, but it was specifically saying, let's take out algorithms for kids. Right?
Mhm.
That hooks people. Let's take out the likes and the favorites. Let's take that out for kids. What does a version of this that isn't as addictive look like? And kind of reverse engineer. If these kids want to be there and they want to be talking with their friends and communicating with their friends using these platforms, okay, well, how do we make it less addictive for them? And I think some of that legislation is interesting. We just have not seen it go anywhere.
No, we haven't. It keeps all of those bits of legislation end up in the courts ultimately. And you even heard members of the state legislature in Florida say, this is likely to end up in the courts as well. The law is set to take effect on January 1st. So one to watch. Joanna, on to our next story. This week, I watched an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm in which a major theme was electric vehicle range anxiety. I thought of you and your Mustang EV.
I haven't seen it yet. I need to see that. Is that a new episode?
Definitely need to see this episode. Yeah, I think so.
Oh my gosh, I need to see it.
So you're allowed to charge your vehicle, your non-Tesla, at a Tesla station now, thanks to this new adapter. And we actually have a clip from some of your latest reporting on that.
Charger number 1. Number 2.
I attempted to charge my 2023 Mach-E at 10 different Tesla Supercharger locations in my fine home state.
It's a beautiful morning in New Jersey. All right, everyone, let's do this. I got to blend in somehow.
So what is the verdict
at home today?
So what is the verdict on the new Tesla app adapter?
Honestly, it's game changing. It's game changing if and I have been on the show talking about my EV adventures, but just to recap for those that don't sit at home always remembering my life history of buying cars or leasing cars, I decided not to go with a Tesla back in August. I decided after testing 5 different types of EVs that I was going to go with a Ford Mustang Mach-E. And my biggest downside to it was the charging infrastructure. I was so jealous of the Teslas and being able to go to superchargers, which there are far more of them in the country, and they are faster and they are sleeker, and it doesn't have a lot of the issues with payments, and they're not often as broken. And I've done a lot of reporting on how bad the public charging infrastructure is for non-Teslas, not ones that are not run by Tesla. And so now I have this adapter and I can take my charger at the Tesla. I can take a charger at the Tesla supercharger station, put the adapter on there and plug into my Mustang Mach-E, my Ford car. And so it's a game changer and it works really well. And I talk about it in that video. Most of those locations worked. I went to those 10 and I mostly charge at home, as my story this week is about. Most EV owners do charge at home. It's more economical, it's more convenient. But if you're out and you're on a road trip, this is a game changer.
Yeah. And speaking of your work on charging at home, that reporting, you write, I already discovered many EV virtues, but I didn't quite grasp the cost savings until I tallied up half a year of home charging data. And the figures are pretty remarkable.
Yeah. And look, this is what I tallied, that in the last 6 months, I've paid about $125 in electricity to charge the car. And now people are going to start to get into the math. Okay, well, how much did you drive? And so I drove under about 2,500 miles. And then people are going to ask, oh, well, what's the math of that would equate to a gas-powered vehicle? And that's where it gets difficult to break down because there isn't an exact equivalent. But I can tell you that I own another gas-powered vehicle. I have a family Volvo, and I can tell you I'm paying a lot more than $125 in 6 months to put the gas into that. And I live in New Jersey, and it's about $3.25 a gallon right now. And that's just for regular. I mean, to people who have to put in the premium gas know that this can get pretty high. And and I talked through in this column that, of course, it's not just the savings, and I don't want to mislead anyone. There are a lot of things that are more expensive about getting an EV. The cars are more expensive themselves. I also had to invest in putting a special outlet, a power outlet in my garage with a special charger, and that cost me about $1,500. But as I talk about in the story, there's a lot of subsidies and rebates that I was able to get with that. So
it was coming from your state's electrical utility, right?
Exactly, coming from both the state and the state electrical utility, which is PSE&G.
So before we move on very quickly, did it help camouflaging yourself in Tesla garb to do this reporting on the mean streets of New Jersey?
It didn't. Yeah, it didn't. And I don't really wear my Tesla hat. But one of the things that I do talk about in the story and the video is that because of the charge port location,
Yeah.
these Tesla stations were designed for Teslas, which have a charge port in a specific location. And so my
Mhm.
car doesn't have it there. And so, no fights have broken out yet at the stations, but basically what
Not yet.
happens is yet. But when I park, I end up taking two charging
Right.
stalls. I don't know, some angry Tesla person
I
might come up
I
to me
can
and
see
say
that
like,
boiling over into an argument at some point.
but
But
honestly, I mean, you watch the full video, you'll see at the end, we have a very nice moment with a man who was in a Tesla,
yes,
and he said it was he was like, wanted to make such a political statement. We Democrats, Republicans, Tesla owners, Ford owners, we can all come together here. We should all come together. So everyone's been quite nice.
it was a very touching moment, and I gotta say, I know you're a Jersey girl. The people of New Jersey came off very nicely in this video. It's a good group.
I don't
All
know if it
right, we
came
have
off looking
links.
clean, but yeah.
We have links to those stories, by the way, on marketplacetech.org. That video is a must watch, everybody. We have a date now for Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference. It kicks off June 10th, goes through the 14th. Some interesting stuff. We're seeing some news about potential deals with China's Baidu, but also deals with OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic. I'm intrigued by this because of what it might say about Apple's approach to AI, thinking about how the approach might be play ball with everyone. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think first of all, it's certain, we can never completely be certain about what Apple's going to do at this conference, but I think we can say very certainly here that they are going to be talking about AI a lot. And that is
Mhm.
not as the rest of the industry has been moving towards that, but that they have clearly been not there yet and not talked about AI or generative AI in their own products. So we absolutely expect that iOS, Mac, maybe Siri, we'll see what happens with Siri, we'll have some
Mhm.
more generative AI coming this fall. Usually what Apple does is they announce these features in June and then they roll them out in September in the fall.
Yeah.
Back to your question, I think what's really interesting about what they might be doing here is that Apple isn't a huge search company like Google. And they have in the past partnered with companies like Google and Microsoft to bring search to their devices. You can switch the default search engine in Safari. And I'm wondering if we're going to see a parallel here where we're
Mhm.
going to see Apple say, we want to do some of our own AI things. And I think they'll do their own generative AI things with some photos and maybe with some translation and some of the things that typically we've seen from Samsung and others on the phone. But if you want to hit a bigger large language model, we can't provide that. That's not our business. So we're going to give you access to Google or OpenAI or Anthropic or Baidu, depending on where you live.
Yeah. We're also, it sounds like, possibly going to see the first update to the Vision Pro, which I know you loved. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what's to come there.
I don't know if I loved it, but yeah, I mean, we could have a whole other conversation about what I've done with the Vision Pro in the last
Wait, have
month,
things
which is
changed? I thought you were a big fan. Okay, forgive me.
no. Look, I think it's an intriguing device, and the review is quite positive because you put this thing on and it is amazing. But then, as I did a follow-up review a month later, it's sort of sitting in the attic. I'm not using it much.
Next to the BlackBerry.
I'm taking it out
Next
to
to the
watch
BlackBerry and the
movies, but
Betamax.
yeah, I'm taking it out to watch movies, but it's not something that's made its way into my everyday life.
All right. I'm sorry, Joanna. I missed that. We're going to post
No,
that
that's okay.
follow-up
I should
review
be
as
I
well.
should be more open.
Not at
Should
all.
be
I'm
sharing
really,
this.
really looking forward to it. I'm glad you did follow up weeks later because I think that's actually very telling. It's really telling about how we really use technology in real life. Well, Joanna, so great to have you back. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Joanna Stern of the Wall Street Journal. Thanks to all of you for watching Marketplace Tech Bytes Week in Review. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to us. You can find us on YouTube at Marketplace APM. Daniel Shin produced this episode, and I'm Lily Jamali. This is APM.